The automatic doors whispered open, releasing a breath of jasmine and sandalwood into the sole afternoon. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across white marble that seemed to glow from within. Everything in this place spoke money, from the hand-stitched leather shoes to the tailored jackets hanging like works of art. When Minho stepped inside, the entire atmosphere shifted. Staff members straightened their spines. Conversations died mid-sentence. Minho, Seoul's most notorious underworld figure, had arrived. His charcoal suit fit like it had been painted onto his lean, muscular frame. A platinum Rolex caught the light as he moved, and his face carried the kind of expression that made brave men look away. Those foolish enough to challenge him rarely got a second chance. But violence wasn't why he had come today. He told himself he was here to browse, nothing more. He reached up to straighten his tie, scanning the racks of imported designer when a voice floated through the space like warm honey. "Good afternoon, welcome to Iona's atelier." Something in his chest locked up. The boutique owner herself had emerged from a door behind the register. She was stunning, this tall African woman with skin like polished mahogany and thick coils of natural hair that crowned her head like a halo. Her presence seemed to fill every corner of the room. The nameplate pinned to her cream blouse read Iona in elegant script. Her smile was genuine, confident, touched with playful energy. "What brings you in today?" That was when it struck him like lightning. For over a year, Minho had carried a secret shame. The crash orchestrated by his enemies had left him with injuries the surgeons said would last forever. They told him he would never be a complete man again. His body had failed him, leaving him feeling hollow and less than human. Gorgeous Korean actresses had thrown themselves at him, but every encounter ended in humiliation and whispered mockery behind closed doors. But now, standing in this boutique, just hearing Iona's voice, his body woke up. Heat surged through him with a force he hadn't experienced in what felt like a lifetime. His pulse hammered. His manhood stirred, hardened, became undeniable. Terror gripped him. His jaw clenched tight. Cold sweat broke across his temples. He dropped his gaze immediately, unable to meet those kind, curious eyes. His lungs forgot how to work properly. "What's happening to me? Sir? Is everything all right?" Iona tilted her head, concern softening her features. Her voice held a firmness that expected truth, the kind of tone that cut through lies. He couldn't form words, couldn't organize his thoughts. His breath hitched like someone had knocked the wind from him. Without explanation, he spun on his heel and walked straight back toward the entrance. His bodyguards outside looked confused as their boss brushed past them with unusual urgency. The chime sounded again and he was gone. Inside, Iona stood blinking in surprise. "Well, that was strange," she murmured to herself. "Did I do something wrong?" Later that evening, Minho sat in his high-rise apartment, gazing out at the glittering cityscape. A tumbler of scotch shook slightly in his grip. The scene kept replaying behind his eyes. Her smile, her voice, her welcoming energy, and the shocking, glorious truth that followed. For the first time in over a year, his body had responded. He slammed the glass down hard enough to chip the mahogany side table. "This can't be real," he said to the empty room. "I'm losing my mind." But no amount of denial could erase what he felt. 3 days crawled by. He couldn't eat properly. He couldn't concentrate during strategy meetings. His lieutenants noticed the change, but nobody dared question him. Finally, desperate for answers, he called his physician. "You're telling me you had a physical reaction?" The doctor's voice carried heavy skepticism through the phone. "Yes." Minho's tone was clipped, defensive. "That's medically impossible. Your diagnostic results are clear, Mr. Min. Must be psychological. A phantom sensation, nothing tangible." But Minho knew what his body had told him. The fire had been too real, too powerful to dismiss. He leaned back in his leather office chair, massaging his temples. Maybe he was delusional, but he couldn't shake it. He wanted to see her again. Actually, he needed to. The following week, he found himself back at Iona's atelier. This time he came without his security detail, something unheard of for someone in his position. But caution had taken a back seat to compulsion. The entrance chime rang, and once more, her voice reached him. Back so soon? Iona's lips curved into an amused smile. She wore a fitted burgundy dress that showed off her curves, and her eyes sparkled with intrigue. I wouldn't have pegged the great Manhood as someone who enjoys shopping this much. He froze again, his heart slamming against his ribs. The same reaction hit him like a tidal wave. His body responded instantly to the sound of her voice. Heat flooded his face, actually made him blush, and he quickly grabbed the nearest blazer from a display. I'll purchase this, he mumbled, avoiding her eyes. Her laughter rang out, rich and melodic. Are you certain? That one's 3 sizes too small for you. Unless you're buying it as a gift for someone. His ears burned hot. He dropped the blazer on the counter and grabbed another, then another, purchasing them all without checking a single price tag. Iona leaned forward across the counter, resting her chin in her hands. You know, most customers don't shop like this. And certainly not someone like you. Why is Seoul's most feared man suddenly my most loyal client? The audacity of her question stole his breath. Nobody spoke to him this way. Nobody. And yet, instead of rage, he felt something different blooming inside him, something he hadn't experienced in years. He felt alive. That night, carrying bags filled with clothes he didn't want or need. His men exchanged confused glances, but Manhood ignored them all. His thoughts, his heart, everything was trapped in an endless loop. Her voice, her smile, her boldness. For the first time in years, Manhood, Seoul's savage mafia boss, felt powerless. And strangely, he didn't mind. The next morning, Seoul's streets thrummed with energy. Car horns echoed between skyscrapers, neon signs blinked to life, and crowds rushed toward their daily pursuits. Inside the headquarters of the Min Syndicate, however, tension hung thick in the air. Manhood sat at the head of a long conference table. His top men surrounding him. They discussed arms shipments, territorial disputes, and outstanding debts, but Manhood barely registered a word. His mind kept drifting back to the boutique, to her, to Iona's teasing grin and the playful challenge in her gaze. Boss, should we reroute the delivery to Busan? One lieutenant asked carefully. Handle it however you see fit, Manhood muttered, waving dismissively. Every man at the table went rigid. The boss never delegated like that. Usually his word was absolute, sharp, calculated, final. Today he seemed distracted, soft, and that alone was alarming. By afternoon he'd made his decision. Without explanation, Manhood dismissed his guards and slid behind the wheel of his black Porsche alone. No convoy, no backup, just him. The streets seemed to part as the mafia boss drove through Seoul. His expression unreadable but his heart racing wildly. When the boutique's glass doors slid open again, the chime sounded almost like mockery. Iona was there, dressed in a sleek black pantsuit that hugged her figure perfectly. Her hair styled in elegant twists. She glanced up, spotted him, and grinned. Well, well, she said, her voice warm but amused. If it isn't my mysterious regular. You know, people are going to start thinking you work here. Manhood stopped mid-stride. His body betrayed him instantly, burning alive at her words. He cursed internally, struggling to maintain his composure. His lips pressed into a firm line as he moved toward a rack of designer shirts. Iona followed, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. What's wrong? Has the cat got your tongue? Or are you planning to buy me out completely this time? Nothing, he said. Instead of elaborating, he picked a random gray shirt, then another, piling them over his arm like an anxious teenager. Hum. Iona crossed her arms, amusement dancing across her features. You know, most mafia bosses intimidate boutique owners. They don't panic shop. That word, panic, made his jaw tighten. For a heartbeat, his old self, the ruthless boss, almost surfaced. But when he looked up and met her eyes, the fire softened into something gentler. Iona stepped closer, dropping her voice. What's really going on here? Why do you keep visiting me? And why always alone? Manhood's throat constricted. Nobody dared interrogate him like this. Not his men, not his rivals, not even law enforcement. But this woman, this boutique owner, spoke to him as though he were simply a man. Not a monster, not a kingpin, not a savage. Just a man. For the first time in years, he felt exposed under someone's gaze. He swallowed hard and forced his voice to remain steady. "Do I need your permission to shop here?" Ayana tilted her head, grinning wider. "No, but you don't seem like the type who buys 15 shirts in one visit without trying them on. Either you're terrible at shopping or something else is going on." Her boldness both unsettled and thrilled him. He turned sharply, walking toward the register and dropping the shirts on the counter. "Wrap these up." "Of course, boss," she teased, her eyes gleaming as she began folding them. The way she said boss, not in fear but in playful mockery, made him bite the inside of his cheek to hide the smile threatening to break through. Meanwhile, across the street, a dark sedan sat waiting. Inside, members of a rival gang observed with growing suspicion. "Why does Minho keep returning here?" one muttered. "He's always alone. No protection, no entourage. Very strange. Maybe the boss has developed a weakness," another replied. Their eyes narrowed. In the criminal underworld, rumors spread like wildfire, and the idea of the great Minho showing vulnerability at a public boutique was information rivals could exploit. Back inside, Ayana handed him the shopping bags. "There you go, mystery man. Another closet full of clothes you'll probably never wear." To her surprise, Minho chuckled softly, almost shyly. The sound startled even him. He hadn't laughed like that in years. "You're bold," he said finally, meeting her gaze directly. "And you're strange," she shot back with a grin. "But at least you have excellent taste in boutiques." For a moment their eyes locked. The air grew thick, charged with something neither could quite name. Minho's heart pounded, his chest heavy with longing and confusion. But then his phone vibrated. A message from his second-in-command appeared on the screen. "Rival spotted in the area. Day alert." He clenched his jaw, grabbed the bags and turned toward the exit. Ayana called after him, her voice light but tinged with curiosity. "See you soon, boss. Don't be a stranger." The words hit him like a physical blow. "See you soon." As he stepped into the evening air, Minho knew one thing with absolute certainty. He couldn't stay away. That night, he stood at his penthouse window once more, watching the city blaze with artificial light. He should have been strategizing, hunting enemies, fortifying his empire. Instead, he thought only of Ayana. The way she teased him, the way she showed no fear, the way his body obeyed her voice like some ancient command. And for the first time in years, Minho, the savage Mafia boss, admitted something to himself. "I want her. Not for business, not for ego, but for himself." Raw, desperate, and absolutely real. The night sky over Seoul glowed with electric color, but Minho's penthouse remained shrouded in silence. He sat alone in his private office, the city sprawling before him like a kingdom he no longer had the energy to rule. Stacks of contracts and intelligence reports lay scattered across the desk, completely ignored. His mind kept circling back to one thing. One woman, Anna. Her laugh, her teasing, the way she looked into his eyes like he wasn't a monster or a legend, but simply a man. A man who could blush, a man who could stumble, and even worse, she was the only one who made him feel truly alive. By morning, he was already behind the wheel of his Porsche, headed back to Ayana's atelier. He hated how desperate this made him feel, hated the need burning inside his chest, but he couldn't fight it anymore. The boutique's glass doors chimed as he entered. Ayana stood behind the counter, scrolling through something on her tablet. Today she wore a deep emerald jumpsuit that highlighted her curves like it had been custom-made. She glanced up, her lips already forming a knowing smirk. "Well, look who's back," she said smoothly. "The man with more clothes than a fashion magazine." Minho froze as always. The moment she spoke, his body betrayed him instantly. Heat surged through him, his pulse quickening dangerously. He gripped the edge of a nearby display to steady himself, forcing his expression to remain neutral. Ayana studied him with open curiosity. "You know, Mr. Min, I've been thinking. Either you really love my shop, or you're running from something." He finally met her gaze, dark eyes narrowing slightly. "And what do you think I'm running from?" Her smile widened. "Yourself, maybe." The word pierced him. For a heartbeat he forgot to breathe. Iona laughed softly, breaking the heavy silence. "Relax. I'm only teasing. But seriously, what's going on? You never bring guards, never bring anyone. You just buy clothes like it's some kind of therapy." Minho's jaw tightened. If only she knew. If only she understood how much power she unknowingly held over him. Instead of answering, he grabbed a sleek charcoal jacket from the rack. "This one," he muttered. Iona came around the counter, moving close enough that her perfume wrapped around him like a spell. She reached for the jacket, her fingers accidentally brushing against his hand. He jerked back slightly. Her eyes flicked up, sharp and amused. "Are you nervous?" "No," he lied. The word tasted bitter. "Yes, you are," she teased. The great Mafia boss, nervous in front of a boutique owner. If people knew this side of you, it would make headlines. His lips twitched, not quite a smile but close. For once, he didn't feel the urge to silence someone who mocked him. For once, he wanted to hear more. Outside, across the street, the dark sedan had returned. Rival eyes watched through tinted windows, their suspicion growing sharper with each passing day. "He's here again," one whispered harshly. "And again without any protection. This woman must mean something significant. If she does, she's his weakness. And weaknesses can be exploited." Back inside, Iona carried the jacket to the register. "So, tell me something," she said casually, folding the fabric carefully. "Why does someone like you, famous, feared, wealthy, keep coming back here?" He opened his mouth, but no words emerged. The truth clawed at his throat. "'Cause you woke me up. Because I thought I was dead inside until you spoke to me. Because I can't stop imagining your smile, your voice, your touch." Instead, he mumbled, "I appreciate your boutique." Iona rolled her eyes. "Sure you do." She leaned closer across the counter, lowering her voice to almost a whisper. "You know, if you keep buying all these clothes, I might start thinking you're trying to impress someone." The air thickened instantly. Her words struck him deep, stirring images he couldn't control. Her in his arms, his lips on hers, her voice breaking with pleasure. His throat tightened, his body burning, his heart racing like he was facing his final battle. He clenched his fists hard. Not here, not now. That evening, Minho's right-hand man finally confronted him. "Boss," the man said carefully, choosing his words with precision. "The rivals are talking. They say you've been distracted, that you're spending excessive time at a boutique." Minho's gaze snapped up, sharp as broken glass. "And?" The man hesitated, sweat forming on his brow. "They say you're weak. That a woman has captured your attention." The room went deathly silent. Minho rose from his chair, his presence suffocating every molecule of air. "Do they believe a woman can destroy me?" His man bowed his head quickly. "Of course not, boss. But people are watching. If she matters to you, she's vulnerable." The words hit him like a physical blow. He dismissed his man with a wave, but the thought clung to him deep into the night. Danger surrounding Iona, the one person who had made him feel alive again. 2 nights later, he returned to the boutique once more, this time long after closing hours. The city had grown quiet, the streetlights casting long shadows. He knocked gently against the glass door. Iona appeared inside, startled but smiling when she recognized him. She unlocked the door. "You again. Do you ever sleep?" He stepped inside, his presence filling the entire space. This time there were no customers, no noise, no distractions. Just him and her. "I wanted to see you," he said finally, his voice low and rough with honesty. Her playful expression faded into something softer. She studied him carefully, seeing the weight behind those words. "Then sit," she said gently, gesturing toward a velvet chair. For the first time in his life, the savage Mafia boss obeyed without question. The city was restless that night. Rain hammered down on Seoul in heavy, relentless sheets. The streets turned slick with water and reflected neon glow. Somewhere in the chaos, shadows moved with purpose. Rival gangs who had been waiting, watching carefully. Minho had made himself predictable. Every few days, he was spotted slipping into the boutique alone, without guards, without any protection. For the first time in years, the savage mafia boss had developed a pattern, and patterns could be weaponized. The ambush struck fast. Minho had just left Iona's atelier, arms loaded with shopping bags he didn't actually need, when the van screeched around the corner. Black masked figures poured out like predators, weapons glinting in the rain. He reacted on pure instinct. His reflexes were razor sharp. Dropping the bags, he drew his concealed pistol and fired. Shot was clean, precise. 2 attackers collapsed, but 4 more charged forward. A blade slashed across his ribs, white-hot pain tearing through him. He fought like a cornered animal, his fury painting the night crimson. But they outnumbered him, and his strength began to falter as blood soaked into his shirt. A car horn blared nearby, scattering the attackers as headlights cut through the storm. The rivals fled, leaving him staggering in the rain, wounded and seething with rage. Instead of calling his men, Minho did something reckless, something unthinkable for a mafia boss. He dragged himself back to the boutique. By the time he collapsed against the glass doors, Iona was inside, organizing inventory for the next day. She gasped at the sight of him. Soaked, bleeding, his black shirt clinging to his body. Minho! Her voice was sharp with panic. She rushed forward, unlocking the door and pulling him inside. "Oh my God, what happened to you?" "Nothing," he muttered, his voice rough, teeth clenched against the pain. "Just a minor injury." She glared at him. "A minor injury? You're bleeding all over my boutique." He collapsed into one of the velvet chairs, his breathing shallow and labored. The savage mafia boss who terrorized Seoul now sat slumped like a wounded boy. Iona's heart pounded wildly. She grabbed a first aid kit from the storage room, hands trembling but determined. "Take off your shirt," she ordered firmly. He smirked faintly through the pain. "You're very bold." "Don't joke with me right now," she snapped. "Do it." Slowly, he obeyed, peeling off the blood-soaked fabric. Iona's eyes widened at what she saw. Old scars crisscrossed his chest, layered with fresh cuts from tonight's fight. His body was strong, powerful, but marked by violence. She cleaned the gash on his side, pressing the cloth firmly. He hissed sharply, muscles tensing, his jaw clenching tight. "Hold still," she murmured, her tone softening despite herself. "You act like you're invincible, but you bleed just like everyone else." For a moment their eyes locked. The distance between them shrank, heavy with something unspoken. "Why didn't you call your men?" she asked quietly. "Why come here?" He swallowed hard, his gaze burning into hers with intensity. "Because I trust you." Her breath caught. The words were simple, but the weight they carried was impossible to ignore. As she bandaged his wound, the air grew charged with electricity. His body was close, his breath warm against her cheek. Her hands lingered on his skin longer than medically necessary, tracing the scars as if reading the story of his survival. "You're insane," she whispered, shaking her head. "A mafia boss showing up at a woman's boutique bleeding. Do you want to put me in danger?" His lips twitched into half a smile, half a grimace. "If they come for you, I'll destroy them." Something inside Iona shifted. This man was dangerous, broken, unpredictable. But in his rawness, she saw something authentic, something no amount of money or power could manufacture. Her fingers brushed against his, and the spark was undeniable. Minho leaned in slowly, his usual confidence stripped completely away. For once, there was no mask, no savage facade. Just a man craving something he thought he'd lost forever. Their lips met softly at first, tentative, then deeper, hungrier. Iona gasped against him, her heart racing as his hand cupped the back of her neck, pulling her closer. The kiss was desperate, like a storm breaking after years of drought. He kissed her like a starving man, like the world might collapse if he didn't taste her. When they finally pulled apart, breathless, Iona's eyes were wide with shock. "What was that?" she whispered. His gaze burned into hers, dark and raw with truth. The truth. Outside in the shadows, unseen eyes watched the boutique through rain-streaked glass. A rival's voice whispered into a radio. He cares for her. He's bleeding and he went to her. This is his weakness. And with that single observation, Iana's fate became entangled with his. The city outside sparkled like scattered jewels across velvet darkness. High-rise towers glowed with life. Cars hummed on the streets far below. But in the penthouse suite of Manhood, the Mafia boss, time seemed to suspend itself. Iana stood by the expansive glass window, her reflection shimmering against the lights. She wore a simple silk dress he had purchased for her earlier that week, but on her body it looked like something designed for royalty. Her hair fell in soft natural curls, framing her face, and the warm smile she offered him was enough to strip every ounce of toughness from his chest. Manhood leaned against the edge of the leather sofa, his heartbeat chaotic. For days, he had dreamed of this moment, feared it, longed for it, agonized over it. The accident, the pain, the humiliations from doctors and failed encounters with models had carved deep wounds inside him. Yet here she was, this African woman named Iana, shattering every limitation of his broken body and igniting a fire that had lain dormant for far too long. Iana, he whispered, almost afraid of his own words. I don't know how to approach this gently. Iana turned, raising one eyebrow, her lips curving into a teasing smile. And here I thought the Mafia boss always knew exactly what to do. He chuckled nervously, running a hand through his dark hair. Not with you. With you, I feel like I'll completely lose control. Then lose it, she said simply, stepping toward him, her bare feet silent against the hardwood floor. I'm not afraid of you. That was all he needed to hear. He grabbed her hand, pulled her against him, and kissed her as though he had been starved his entire existence. His lips crashed against hers with fierce desperation, full of hunger that had been buried in silence for too long. Iana gasped into the kiss, her hands clutching his shoulders, feeling the raw strength trembling inside him. He lifted her effortlessly, carrying her to the sofa as if she were the most precious treasure he had ever possessed. When their bodies touched, he moved like a man possessed by fire. Not clumsy, not uncertain, but burning with an intensity she had never experienced before. It wasn't just physical intimacy. It was proof. Proof to himself that he was still alive. Proof that the accident hadn't stolen his manhood. Proof that with her he was complete. Iana could barely breathe under the waves of passion he poured into her. He kissed every inch of her like he was memorizing her body. His hands explored with a mixture of reverence and urgency, as if each touch could erase the years of doubt inside him. Iana, he whispered hoarsely against her neck. You don't understand. This feels like the end of the world. Like if I don't give you everything now, I'll cease to exist. Her heart twisted at the broken honesty in his voice. She cupped his face, forcing him to look at her. His dark eyes shimmered with tears he was too proud to let fall. Then live like the world is ending, she said, her voice soft but commanding. And he did. Manhood moved with a hunger that made Iana's body tremble. He was both gentle and wild, romantic yet savage. Every stroke, every kiss, every touch seemed to say, I'm alive because of you. Hours passed, but it felt like one long, endless moment of connection. When they finally collapsed into each other's arms, breathless and trembling, he buried his face against her chest like a child seeking comfort. His strong frame shook, not from exhaustion, but from the overwhelming relief of being liberated. Free from shame, from fear, from loneliness. I thought I was broken, he confessed, voice muffled against her skin. All those nights I believed I was half a man. He pulled back, staring at her with a mixture of awe and disbelief. And then you appeared. Iana, you gave me back everything. You healed me. Her eyes softened with emotion. She ran her fingers through his messy black hair, smiling at the man who only hours ago had seemed so untouchable, so terrifying to the world. To her he was simply human, raw, vulnerable, and hers. Maybe you were never broken, she whispered. Maybe you were just waiting for the right woman. that struck him harder than any bullet ever could. He kissed her again, slower this time, tasting every ounce of sweetness her lips offered. From that night forward, he knew Iona wasn't just another woman passing through his life. She was his cure, his miracle, his salvation wrapped in silk and laughter. And for Iona, the shock of his passion that night left her stunned. She had never been loved with such desperate romance, such intensity, as though the man was writing his soul across her skin. She realized she wasn't just helping him reclaim his strength. She was falling into something far deeper than she had ever imagined possible. For the first time in his violent, chaotic life, Minho whispered words he never thought he'd say. "Don't leave me. Ever." And for the first time in hers, Iona answered without hesitation. "I'm not going anywhere." The city outside kept shining, oblivious to the storm of love inside the penthouse. But in that room, under the glow of dim golden lights, the Mafia boss and the boutique owner sealed something more powerful than any criminal deal, more dangerous than any gang rivalry, and more unbreakable than any scar tissue. Love. Raw, unstoppable, and burning as if the world was ending. Hello, beautiful souls. In this story, we discover that no matter how broken you believe you are, the right love can restore you completely. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today.